All right, hello and welcome to another tutorial in Maya. Today we are going to work with some clouds, and more specifically we're going to be using the physical sun and sky, and we're going to create some vaporous clouds that sort of rush across the backdrop. And we're going to do that with a fluid container, and a 2D fluid container to be specific. And we're going to make some clouds kind of move across the background there and give us a nice animated effect for the sky. And in this scene, so far, I just basically have the physical sun and sky enabled. I made a displacement map for the terrain here. And then I have this really cool model by the guys over at 3dchaya.com. And I found this on the internet. I was just looking for some free models so I could stick into some proxy environments just when I'm doing some conceptualizing and stuff. So thank you, whoever made this model over at 3dchaya.com. Very beautiful piece and a great model. So good job. Okay, so here it is. I am working with the indirect lighting. And you may want to go over to Lester Banks and check out this MR Indirect Lighting tab by David Johnson, and that will give you a really cool option for connecting a camera basically, or camera controls to your physical sun and sky. So Lester always finds the good stuff. Go see him every day and get some good CG food for your brain. Okay. So anyway, that's the credits, and let's get started. As you can see here, nothing too complex. I'm going to show you kind of where I'm starting with with this in Maya. Back here, you'll notice some heavy clouds. We've got our model right here, and I basically have this camera animated to kind of move in. But as you'll see, there's a lot of movement in the clouds, and they sort of morph, in kind of a vaporous kind of way. So that's pretty cool. And we can do this with a 2D fluid container, and we're going to paint some density into a container and then position it in a scene so that it's kind of effective. So, that's about it. I have some other cameras and stuff attached to this. I'm just doing some conceptual stuff right now. So anyway, that's kind of where we're going. And the importance of this is just sort of placing this 2D fluid container in the right position to get the right look. And, there you go. Okay, so let's take a look at where I started basically, or where we can start. I'm going to come over here, and I think I'll just come into a recent file, and I'll go into this other project, and basically here I am at the start. I just have the physical sun and sky. I have a 2D fluid container, a sphere, and a plane. No big thing. But essentially what it's going to look like is something like this. You'll notice that you have your fluid plane back here with your clouds, and as that goes along, you can kind of see it changing. I just did a bunch of saved frames from this render. And that's essentially what we get. We get this nice movement of vaporous type clouds across the sky. And remember, you can position it so they go right to left, or from back to front, or front to back. It doesn't really matter. 2D fluid containers are very, very versatile. So with that being said, let's take a look at this scene. I'll go back to the beginning here, and we'll just sort of take a play. You can see where they're kind of moving across the sky like that. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, let's take a look at the placement first of this container. You'll notice that it has a lot of room to it. It's pretty much oversized. And if I just sort of tool around the scene here, that's essentially what you get. And that's just, the color of clouds. So with that in mind, let's take a look at creating one of these fluid containers and assigning the right properties so that your fluid kind of flows across the sky like that. I'm going to go ahead and just delete this. We'll just delete that plane. And I think what I'll do is just start out with a new one. So make sure you're in your dynamics menu set and come up into your fluid effects. And what we're going to do is just create a basic 2D container. And there it is. Now, the first thing you should know about these containers is that you're going to want to size this container. you're going to want to size your fluid. And you want to do so from over here in your tab settings, because sometimes using your controls over here to scale. Let's see if I can grab that guy right there. Let's grab him right there. And well, let's see. If I were to scale that from right here, it's not going to necessarily correctly calculate what's happening in this reaction. So the best thing to do is size it from over here and get yourself in a habit of doing that. This helps the solver solve everything correctly. So we'll just go to a size of, say, like 100, and let's see what happened there. Okay, well, that's kind of enough to cover my plane, so I'm just going to leave everything else at default. And I think I might move that plane up a little bit. Let's see, let's grab this guy and move him up a little bit. Okay, we'll stay right there with it. Now that we have our container, what we need to do is we need to add some elements to it. So with the container selected, come up, and we're going to want to, let's make sure we're in our dynamics menu set. And we're going to add some contents. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint with this fluids tool. And go ahead and just check on your options there. You should have a tool setting that opens up over here and gives you some access to some controls. You can also double click on it right over here, and that should open up your tools section. So now that we have that, we want to just leave everything at default. You can either, I'm going to use this brush choice right here, so I'll just click on that one, and we're going to paint some density inside of here. So I'll just go ahead and at default right now just click on, we'll just click on some density all over here. Okay, and then let up. And if we play the simulation, I have mine set for about 3,000 frames. So I'll go back to the beginning of the animation and just sort of play it. And you can see, by painting some density in here, it's sort of acting as a fluid and it's moving around, and that's kind of cool. We may just want to leave it like that, but really what we're after is to get a more cloud-like formation going in here. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a couple more adjustments real quick. Now, let me push pause here. If this doesn't seem to be the look that you're after, you can always come over here, and basically what you want to do is set your value down to 0, and we want to flood that with a 0 value. Okay, and hit this flood button, and that basically erases everything in here. So now we can start again. Just remember to bring your value back up to 1, and that way you'll be able to paint. If your value is at 0, I'm going to go ahead and set that value to 0. You'll notice that you can't really paint any density in there. Okay, so that's the first thing to really be aware of, is your density paintings. So I'm just going to paint some density in the bottom there. And I'll go ahead and go back to the beginning of the animation and kind of play it like that. All right, so now we're getting something that looks more cloud-like, more movement in there, but it kind of comes up directly from here, and it sort of does the same thing, okay? And it's only at 700 frames. So everything is kind of getting caught up inside of this container. And that's cool and everything. But really what we want to do is have some fall off on both of the edges now. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of the animation. I'll put it on pause. And let's come over into the outliner, and you'll want to choose your fluid shape. All right, and we want to get off of this menu setting here. So let's just see if I can switch that up. Get back into my tabs. Okay. So now we've had our fluid 1 and fluid 1 shape. Let's come down here and let's see. First thing we could mess around with is the gravity. And gravity is going to control the speed of how fast it moves up like that. So we'll go back to the beginning, and I think what I'll do is I'll add some gravity and see if we can keep that down a little bit. All right, so let's bring gravity down to maybe like 4 or 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and take another render, and it's moving a little slower. It's doing kind of what I expect it's going to do. So for the moment, we'll just leave it there. Now, another thing we want to be aware of is, you see how it's coming up, it's getting caught at the top. let's just open up this top so this can escape by setting our Y boundary to the negative Y side. That way everything will escape. And let's do the same thing for our sides. Okay? So we'll use the boundaries of letting everything out by setting it to a negative value. We'll go back to the beginning, and I should see, it should rise up and just sort of leave the area right there. And that's kind of what you should expect it to be doing. So that's cool for the moment, but we're going to change things up a little bit. I'm going to come down here, and we're going to do a drop off in our shape. And let's come down into our, way down here into our shading environment. And you're looking for your drop-off shape. And right now it's in a cubical, it's cubic, and it has very little edge drop-off. So I'm going to let this play forward a little bit in here. And I think what I'll do is drop this, instead of having it be a cube shape, I'll make that the shape of a sphere, and I'll give it a little bit more drop off around the edges. All right. Okay, well that's okay. It's doing what it should be doing, but it's not really what we're after yet. And so let's come back up here and make a couple more adjustments. I'm going to first give it a little bit more density. Okay, just bring up your major density scale there. And in this case, I think it's probably best to add a little bit of swirl to that just to get it moving around a bit. So I'm going to put the swirl at about 3.2 or whatever. Go back to the beginning, take it from the start, and now you can see some more stuff happening. But really, that's a lot of swirl. That's a pretty fast cloud. So I may want to bring that swirl down just a little bit, maybe just give it like a 1.3. And I may want to change the gravity a little bit just to bring that gravity down a bit more, because we don't really want it moving that fast. So we'll do another test here. All right, it's swirling about. So these are your main two controls that we're trying to get a grip on early on, and getting our basic settings, so to speak, so that it's moving the way we want it to move. I'm going to bring this gravity down, and I think also what I'll do is mess around with the buoyancy a little bit. And let's see if I can bring this buoyancy down to like 0.493. all right, and let's take another. Okay, well, it's moving slower, but let's make it move even slower. I'm going to bring that buoyancy down to about 0.70. And let's also bring our gravity down a little bit. All right, bring our gravity down to like 1.1. Go back to the beginning and hit play. And you can see where you can fine-tune the look of this by just slowing everything down. The effect isn't lasting that long, so you may want to just keep lowering your gravity a little bit. Also bring your density down just a little bit. Just make adjustments there. Make adjustments in your buoyancy settings, and maybe let's see here. We could probably add a little tiny bit of dampening to it, and yeah. So by adding that damp, that sort of holds it back. So, be real careful with dampening. Sometimes dampening is not a good thing. Just something to be aware of. I'm gonna bring that damp back down to 0. We'll go back to the beginning. All right. So there you go. Well, let's just say we have fast-moving clouds for the moment, and now we want to sort of translate those into our scene and get them looking good. First thing we know for sure is that clouds generally don't move from here straight up. So I'm gonna do something real quick though. We're gonna play around with this container and just sort of get some different settings for it. Let's see here. Let's get our fluid, and we're going to keep the resolution the same, but I think I actually might want to edit the contents in there. So if you come in, we can get our density tool again here, and I'm going to lower the value and flood this scene. Let's bring that value down. We're going to flood that, bring our value back up, and I'm going to paint in some more, I'm going to paint in density again. So let's see, with that in mind, let's get our brush. I'm just going to click on here and paint some density in like that. And I think we'll move it all about, and then we'll set an initial state on this. Okay, so let's try that, see what happens. Okay, so that's not quite what I want, but it's good enough for what we're doing now. I'm going to set my initial state right here. So you want to go over into your fluids and fluid effects, come down to set initial state, and that will set the initial state for that. So now when I go back to the beginning of the animation, you get something more like that. Now you'll notice that everything is escaping. Let's go back and change that up just for fun. Go back into your fluid, and let's see, in this case I may want to get back into my fluid 2 shape, and let's see here. We are going to want to give it a little bit more, a little less gravity. All right, and let's see what happens there. All right, now let's try containing it on both sides. I'm going to just put this to boundary Y both sides, and this one to both sides. And now let's see what happens when all that stuff is contained within that container. Okay, so it's sort of moving around and swirling and doing its thing. We're going to use this for our sky right now, and we'll just sort of leave it like that. But remember, you can let it go, out the top or the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to rotate this guy kind of right around like that, and then bring it down. And you get the idea. From here on out, it's just a matter of trying to get your positioning right. Let's see. And there we go. Okay, so let's do a quick render and actually see what this looks like rendered. Bring that over and we'll do a quick render. And it looks pretty, blocky right now. So we don't really want it to be blocky. All right. So the first thing we need to work on is that fluid transparency. So right away we know that we need fluid transparency. I'm going to bring up my outliner here. And let's come down to our transparency section down in the bottom. All right. And we're going to lighten that up a bit by just making it a little bit more transparent by bringing the value up a little bit. And I suppose I could keep on rendering and rendering here for a long time. I'll just go ahead and give it quite a bit of transparency. And let's come over here and see what happens. Okay, so you can see it's knocking it off a bit, which is cool. So, you can keep fooling around with your transparency levels there to get it kind of how you want it to look. And let's say we want to switch this up from, the white that it is to something, say, more cloud-like, let's go for a little bit deeper orange, kind of something right in there. All right, so there it is. And if I do a quick render on this, there you go. So making it this color of orange gives us something like that. And remember, you can always change up your ramp on your color, and that will help give your clouds a little bit more delineation. You could maybe put, say some other color in there, and maybe put a white value in here, a really deep orange, and whatever. You get the idea. So you can set a various ramp up. Now we'll take a quick render by just seeing what changing some of those colors around did. Not a real noticeable difference right at the moment, because we're going to probably have to be playing around with the scale through here. But there's some tutorials on adjusting fluids and stuff and how you mess around with your ramps right here. So anyway, you get the idea. Now, if you want it to go another way, of course, all you have to do is just, roll it around wherever you want it. So there you go. Pretty easy concept, but kind of overlooked at times because, you need vaporous sky only so many times. But the 2D fluid container and painting some density in there can really, really help you out. All right? So there you go. I hope you had a good time on this tutorial. Go practice, 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 and do your adjustments and come up with some good-looking vaporous clouds. All right. Well, thanks for watching. As always, read a book. Be a good person every day, all day. And we will see you here for the next one. All right. Thanks for watching.